I think the 2024 Formula 2 season is gearing up to be the best Formula 2 season of all time, even better than 2018 Russell Norris Albon. Let's talk about it. In case you didn't know, Formula 2 has retired the Dallara F2 2018 chassis that has been in use for the past 6 seasons ahead of the 2024 season. This means a new car for everybody to get used to. The more experienced F2 drivers will not be carrying the same experience into next season like they typically do compared to the rookies. This should in theory make the learning curve a bit more equal for all and your actual talent shine. A more merit-based competitive championship perhaps. Look, if you look at the two specs on paper, they don't really look much different. If anything, they've just made the new car 4 centimeters longer, which you would think would be anti-racing. Well, the things that they've changed don't really show up in a spec sheet because it's all to do with safety, primarily a lot of new safety standards since 2018, and aerodynamics, of course. The front and rear wings have been reprofiled significantly, way more in line with actually kind of like the 2022 F1 show car, the super simplified version of these current F1 regulations. The intent, just like it was in F1, is to generate less turbulent air, which means closer racing. Turbulent air is always going to get in the way of open wheeler racing being close, and hopefully these changes make a difference. Because remember, these chassis can't change. They're all built by Dallara in Italy. The teams do not develop cars in Formula 2. They do a lot of setup and they still have a lot of responsibility, but ultimately is way more on the drivers themselves to showcase their talent. It won't be a night and day difference, but when you combine this car change with a field of F2 drivers that's, I think, one of the strongest we've ever seen, the recipe is looking pretty tasty. So I've picked a few drivers who've stood out to me as ones to watch in 2024. Although, quick one, Tommo's Racing Goods t-shirt live. Okay, this is the first video I've done since I dropped them actually. And you've already bought over half of them. So thank you to everyone who's placed an order. Every single order that's been placed wherever you are in the world has been shipped. But once they're gone, they're gone. I will never make this design again. So if you want to get involved, right, with the first ever drop of Tommo's Racing Goods, more to come, I promise. Check out tommosracinggoods.com. It's a bit late to order in time for Christmas, but maybe you got a bit of Christmas money, you know, from your nan. And you want to buy an incredibly well-made, heavyweight, made in Britain, British bias t-shirt. Why not? Zach O'Sullivan. The 18-year-old Williams Academy driver from Cheltenham, England will be 19 by the time the 2024 F2 season starts. He finished second in F3 last season, taking more wins than championship winner Gabrielle Bortto, but couldn't quite match his consistency. I've known of Zach for a while. When I was in 21, he won the Aston Martin Young Driver Award thing, but I think what makes me extra excited about his 24 F2 season is the team that he's going to be racing in an ART, which at times this season, in the hands of Haer, of course, and Pepe Martin, looked on another level. I mean, bar rain, those ARTs were clear. Again, this is a spec series, but having a good team behind you does clearly make a difference. If you're going to bank on any team understanding, getting on top of a new chassis quickly, ART surely has to be one of them. And maybe with Zach O'Sullivan at the wheel, it can do something special. And being a Williams Academy driver as well, the pressure's got to be high, because look at the opportunities that potentially going to open up at that team in 2025 if Albon doesn't believe in the project, moves elsewhere. Logan Sargent, if he doesn't step up enough, there could be 2 vacant seats at Williams. And if Zach can come in and win Formula 2 at the first time of asking, he puts himself in an incredible position to take an F1 seat. Although to win the F2 title this season is a pretty Herculean ask, because we're going to go through some pretty incredible names. Paul Aron. The 19-year-old Estonian will be 20 by the time the 2024 season starts, and was part of the Mercedes Junior team alongside the likes of Kimi Antonelli and Frederic Vesti. However, last month it was announced that the two would be parting ways, which is a shame because Paul has shown a lot of ability. He won the CIK-FIA European Karting Championship, South Garda Winter Cup and WSK Champions Cup, all in 2018. His karting CV, at least, is gleaming. In open wheelers, he hasn't quite taken a dub just yet, but racing with Prema last season in F3, he took P3, just 7 points shy of Zach O'Sullivan, and then took P3 in 2021 in Formula Regional as well. So back-to-back P3s consistently up there is always a good sign. Unfortunately for him, he hasn't been able to carry on to Prema in 2024 because their F2 partnership is absolutely stacked. We will get onto that. He will be racing instead with Haer, who were running Hadjar and Crawford last season. A bit of a middle of the road F2 team, you got to say, Haer, although they did go for an F1 slot. They were one of the 4 teams who were trying to get into F1. We'll see with Haer. They've always been pretty inconsistent, but have had their moments to shine, and perhaps Paul Aaron can get on top of it. He did a couple of F2 races at the end of last season. At least he's got a start. He's got somewhere in terms of this level of power, I guess, from an open wheeler car. He's starting on something. Victor Martin. Time for the first non-rookie on the list, and I want to draw some attention to the returning 22-year-old Victor Martin. Well, as of recording, he's still not technically confirmed at ART for 2024, but it's all but done as far as I'm aware anyway. The 2022 F3 champion had a fantastic start to his rookie season this year. Scored podiums in the Bahrain and Saudi sprint races, but inconsistency crept in pretty soon after. A run of 5 pointless races in a row from the Jeddah sprint race to the Baku feature race really inhibited any championship ambitions early on. But by the end of the year, he still managed to creep back up to P5, the best performing rookie this season, just 15 points shy of Ayumu Iwasa in P4. He took a win at Silverstone, 9 podiums over the course of the entire season. Victor never, ever looked out of his depth. Yes, there were mistakes, but he never looked like a driver who should not be there. Again, there is a second ART seat that has not yet been confirmed, but given Victor's Alpine Junior links, it's almost certainly going to be him. I'm expecting a lot from Victor this season. Right off, Martin, at your own peril. That's all I'm going to say. Pepe Martin. The 18-year-old Spaniard was right in the F3 Championship fight last season, taking 3 wins all year, and was sitting quite comfortably P2 after his round 12 podium at Silverstone. Unfortunately, a retirement-laden end part of the season meant he finished down in P5, but he's already well proven that he's got the speed, no doubt. He will be racing at Campos, a Spanish team, which should only help his cause in 2024, and Campos actually delivered a pretty decent car at times last season as well, because they haven't always, Campos. They've been almost high-tech-esque in their inconsistency, but over, well, last season anyway, they're pretty good. But I think one of the biggest advantages Pepe has right now is a certain Formula 1 driver who is very much in his corner. Marty joined Fernando Alonso's management agency A14 back in September 2022, and with the guidance of literally the most experienced, arguably motorsport driver ever. I'm sure there's some fella in NASCAR who's done a bit more than Fernando, but Pepe is the most promising young Spanish driver coming through. Fernando made it to F1. Given how much history F1 and Spain have, the lack of Spanish drivers before Fernando is crazy. What Pedro de la Rosa was about it. So if Fernando can help cultivate and harness Pepe's ability, he could carry on that lineage when Fernando does eventually retire and bring Marty to Formula 1. The ingredients are there, and we're seeing from Oscar Piastri this season how beneficial having an experienced Formula 1 driver for Oscar Mark Webber in your corner, supporting you, not even telling you how to drive, just helping you manage the circus that is Formula 1 and keeping your mentality strong and focused. Dennis Hauger. Back again for 2024 in Formula 2, Dennis Hauger was F3 champion in 21, remember. He's still only 20 years old as of recording. He will be 21 by the time the season starts. And these 2 years of Formula 2 he's had under his helmet are... It's been a mixed bag, hasn't it? I mean, it started really strong this year. In Bahrain, he was driving on absolute rails. P2 in the end, and took a couple of sprint race wins in Australia and Hungary. However, he only managed 4 podiums all season, which meant he finished P8 in the championship. Given he was F3 champion coming in, my expectations were very high. He's got a huge fan base, by the way. I remember going to Hungary and to Austria and seeing a interesting amount of Dennis Hauger merchandise. I was not expecting that at all. There were way more people repping Hauger than about a third of the F1 grid, I'd say. Perhaps Dennis can find a way in his 3rd season in an MP as well. He's at MP Motorsport again for this season to do kind of what Felipe Drogovic did. Had a decent but not super impressive first and second season in Formula 2, and then just walked away with it in his third. Maybe Haer can find that little missing element, because Macau Grand Prix last month, P2 in the end. Great drive from Dennis. Good to end the season on decent bit of momentum. Let's see if he carries it on, because I know a lot of Norwegians out there will be absolutely gassed if he gets anywhere near an F1 seat, which is a long shot, but if he can win F2, there's always a chance. Gabrielle Bortto. Last year's Formula 3 champion is always going to have big eyeballs on them in the subsequent F2 season. Gabrielle Bortto won it by a pretty convincing margin in the end as well, so the 19-year-old was rightly expected to do well, especially given in 2024 this F2 machinery, again, no one else has got any experience, so coming in as a dominant F3 champion, it's looking good. The Brazilian did only win 2 races last season in F3, but it was unparalleled consistency that brought the title his way. And that's not that common in junior formulas, right? The whole point is that, you know, you crash a lot, you kind of learn your way through, and Gabby kept it pretty clean, won the title by 45 points in the end. In fact, he was only outside the top 10 on 3 occasions last year, took 4 P2s, and was only outside the top 7 4 times. He's jumping into a good team in Invicta Virtuosi. Jack Doohan was driving for them last year. He's not racing in F2 this year. And second half of the season, you could argue Jack Doohan was the strongest driver in F2. Alongside Kush Miney, who did a great job in that Campos last year. I think Virtuosi they had a little bit of a slump, but I feel like they're getting back to their, you know, Ilott, Joe era when they were delivering cars that were fighting for podiums pretty consistently. And this is, I think, a pretty good team for Bortto to be in. Tommo Miata. The driver I am most interested, though, in seeing in an F2 car in 2024 is the reigning Super Formula and Super GT GT500 champion, Tommo Miata. His journey to F2 is completely different to anybody else on the grid, so let's give you a quick update on how he got to where he is. The 24-year-old is a 2-time F4 Japanese champion, but that was way back in 2016 and 2017. Twice he finished P2 in Japanese F3 in 2018 and 2019. And then in 2020, he won Super Formula Lights, which is the Indy Lights equivalent, the F2 equivalent, I guess, of Super Formula. The consistency up until this point was pretty off the charts, but then into 2021 and 2022, he started racing GT500s in Super GT and Super Formula. Miata is a Toyota affiliated driver, and in Super Formula you have Toyota engines, you have Honda engines, and you know, Yuki's associated with Honda. Iwasa's going to be racing a Honda powered car. Basically, these 2 seasons, Super GT, Super Formula, they kind of coincide. They go one weekend after the other. So you've got a lot of drivers who juggle both championships in Japan, both of Japan's premier motor racing challenges, right? And the standard is super high, right? You've got a lot of names you'll know: Yamamoto, Kobayashi, Najiri, Fukuzumi, like the list goes on. 21 and 22 for Miata were okay, but he wasn't really knocking on podiums that often. But then the 2023 season came on, and that's when he turned the gas mark up to maximum and some. Let's start with the 2023 Super GT season. So it works a little bit different. You don't have an individual drivers' championship. Every car is shared by 2 drivers. Tommo Miata was alongside teammate Sho Suboi and took the GT500 title in pretty dominant fashion, winning 3 out of the 8 rounds on show. Tommo was excelling in a GT car, but what about open wheelers? Well, many of you might be a bit more familiar with his Super Formula season because of Liam Lawson being in the title fight alongside Miata, but Miata came out on top. Miata took just 2 wins all season, even though Lawson and Najiri took 3 apiece, but the consistency to never finish lower than P5 all season, takes 6 podiums from 9 races in total. Tommo got it done. We saw how well Liam did in F2 last year, finishing P3, and how well he did when he got called up in F1 this year, you know, like he's proven it. Miata is a bit older than the rest. He's 24, but that comes with more experience in, again, Japanese F4, F3, Super Formula Lights, Super Formula, GT500. He's also done a little bit of sports car racing as well. So him jumping into this brand new Formula 2 car for 2024, it should be like water off a duck's back, I think. Not to mention with an established team like Rodin, Carlin behind him, who are the same team that Yuki Tsunoda drove for in his one and only Formula 2 season. It can be a really difficult challenge for a Japanese driver to come over to Europe and perform. It worked with Rodin Carlin when Tsunoda was there, and I like to think they'll have learnt from that process how to get the best out of Miata coming over and really make him feel at home, right? Because I am fascinated to see how someone who has won back-to-back Super GT, Super Formula titles stacks up relative to the F2 field. Do I think he'll win F2? Probably not. I just want to see where he is, because then that gives us an idea of what the standard of Super GT and Super Formula is as well. You know what I mean? Ollie Bman. The 18-year-old Ferrari junior made a pretty good impression in his debut season of Formula 2. In the end, he finished P6, 73 points behind championship winner Haer. Ollie did struggle with consistency throughout the season, but he had one hell of a peak, didn't he, in Baku? At the time, he was still just 17 years old, right? He went to Baku, put it on pole, won the sprint, won the feature race. It was the most dominant weekend of any F2 driver we've saw all season. Of course it was, come on. And he took 2 further wins in 2023 in both Catalunya and Monza, both feature races as well. So they're the ones you have to qualify up front to then win, right? Rather than a reverse grid sprint where you can luck into a good position and then hold on. You know what I mean? Especially in a track like Monaco, I guess. He's back again in a Prema this season. He's got to surely be a favourite. Surely, right? I know he's British and I know he's from near where I live, but come on, I can't be just being biased, right? There's hype for a reason, especially after the FP1 run-in he did in Mexico and Abu Dhabi with Haas. They were impressed. They didn't have to be as kind with their words as they were. In fact, after Mexico, quoting Haas trackside engineering director Ao Komatsu, "I don't think you can expect much better, and certainly better than my expectations were. Not that my expectations were low, but that was so professional and he did not put a foot wrong." One to watch is Ollie Bman, that's for sure. Andrea Kimmy Antonelli. The hype is justified. I will explain why. Andrea Kimmy Antonelli, at just 17 years of age, will be making the jump into F2 for 2024, completely surpassing Formula 3. Don't need Formula 3. Straight into F2. Now, he hails from Bologna in Italy, not far from Maranello from Ferrari, but he's not a Ferrari driver. He's a Mercedes driver, actually. Ferrari definitely, they f***ed up on that, didn't they? Mercedes snapped him up in 2019, and look, trajectory-wise, almost certainly this could be the guy replacing Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes if Lewis gives it a couple more years. I could absolutely see that. So Tommo, if he didn't do F3, why did he justify an F2 seat? Let me explain. In 2023, he competed in the 20-round Formula Regional European Championship and won by a pretty convincing 39 points. Very good. He also raced in the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship, a 16-round championship, and won that by 40 points. Back-to-back wins, lovely jubbly, but what about the season before that? Okay, this is ridiculous. In 2022, he didn't just win Italian F4, he dominated. Verstappen-esque, took 13 out of 22 race victories, a couple of P2s in there, and all 7 wins on the bounce. A 102-point gap to P2. And he missed a race as well in that 7. You know, he did after 6, he missed a race and was back in and just won that. Just came back and was like, I'm just going to win this one as well. Mad. But that wasn't enough for Kimmy in 2022. No, he also went to German F4 and dominated that as well. He didn't just win it, he just dominated that as well. Even more so. How's that possible? It's an 18 race championship and he won 9 of those races, 50% win rate. You think, oh, that's pretty impressive. He missed 3 races. He missed the entire Loretz Ring round, which is 3 rounds. Of all the races he competed in German F4 in 2022, he only finished off the podium 3 times, with his last position being a P6. Andrea Kimmy Antonelli has demonstrated everything up to this point. What's important now is he gets an F2 car and he delivers that on track. He's got the right people around him and all that, because he's coming with so much gas, so much expectation, that I really hope he doesn't buckle. I really hope he delivers on it, because this F2 season is going to be the toughest test he's had so far by a margin. Which drivers did I not shout out that you think deserved a shout out maybe for the championship, and who's going to win it in 2024? Let me know in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.